What is it about us that we become identified with systems or parties almost as a replacement of religion?
I'm so for freedom of speech. I do think there needs to be class and like a healthy political etiquette. You should be more focused on your policies and presenting yourself in a positive light than presenting your opponent in a negative one.
Absolutely.
And I do think there should be some regulations there.
It's insane for us to not want whatever party wins an election to thrive and succeed. We need to want them to succeed and to make our future better than our past is.
You're listening to the Mindshift podcast. My name is Erwin McManus, and I'm here with my dad, Erwin McManus. We are, pre-recorded in New York City.
We're in New York. We're in the beautiful Soho Grand.
Yes. Shout out to Lauren Conrad Richards, who is our dear friend who takes care of us.
Sweet.
Yeah, he put us up in this amazing place. Thank you so much. Okay, so I nailed that intro. I usually always have to do it at least twice because I say something wrong and you're like, dude, you didn't even introduce yourself.
Well,
so here we are. It's a big win.
It is. I just absolutely love New York. It's probably one of the most energetic cities in the world. Maybe the most energetic city in the world.
I mean, it's just so alive.
Yeah. I mean, you have to go to Tokyo or Paris or something like that to find something that has the level of energy and creativity and just, I don't know, aliveness that the city has.
There's something so unique and beautiful about New York City. So we did our second Mosaic New York pop-up last night, right in Greenwich Village.
That was
like
so much
one
fun.
block from Washington Square Park. It was so much fun. You spoke and talked about frequencies. And honestly, I'm shocked. We did a recap reel. So it's on at Mosaic and at Mosaic New York City on Instagram. But I'm just blown away at the turnout and the people who showed up and the quality of people and the kindness and just the willingness to jump in and get excited and do this and build this. I woke up to so many text messages from people being like, whatever you need. What do we need to do? What's next?
That's awesome.
How do we get this thing going? So congratulations. That's such a big win.
You too. No, it was great. And I saw so many of your friends there. And I think that's the key of it is that really wasn't an event. It was a coming together of friends and community. And it's just really, really beautiful. I did think it was funny. Different people came to me and saying, you communicate really differently than what we're used to. You use language we're not accustomed to. And almost like, is it okay?
Yeah. No, that talk especially was very unique. We got to link the talk in the YouTube at some point when it releases. But the talk was really unique. You really went deep into your bag with language, and it was really, really cool because at one point the venue just got so warm because it's winter, and I don't understand cold places that keep everything inside hot.
Yeah, you don't have to make your building 100 degrees just because it's 45 outside.
Yeah, we don't want it to be this hot in the summer. Let's not make it this hot in the winter. So, we're in there and it's burning up. So me and another guy named Phil, there's two doors at the entrance. So we're holding the doors open like human, door stoppers. And this guy just comes up to me and an older guy, and I know his name. His name's in my email. And he goes, what's this? And I was like, it's church. And he goes, yeah, but what is this? And I was like, well, I guess it's an art gallery, but we're doing church here. And I was like, the guy up there speaking is my dad. And just thought it would be like a nice human touch point. And he goes, well, where are you from? And I was like, well, I'm from LA, but I lived here for a few years. We both love the city. And he goes, oh, my son's in LA. And he goes, what's the name of this? And I go, it's called Mosaic. And he goes, you have to be kidding me. And it was like, you could tell he was like physically moved. And he goes, for 41 years around the corner from this location, I've done a one-man show called Mosaic, The Fragments of My Life. And he goes, I'm Jewish. And I was like, oh, awesome, cool. And he goes, I can't explain it, but these things have been happening to me my whole life. And I was like, well, send me your one-man show link and I'll send you the message from tonight. And it was just very cool. And he kind of stopped and watched for a few minutes and then left and was very taken aback. It was kind of shook.
I mean, that's what people call serendipity.
That is.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing.
It was really, really beautiful. We're a few weeks out from the election. We have to talk about it.
Really a week out.
Yeah. So last Friday would have been, I guess, our first episode week. Yeah. And then we didn't release an episode. We've been really busy. We also wanted to take time to process, see what was going on, listen to the news, read some articles, and talk about what's going on in the world, especially in the United States. And then, here we are.
Yeah, we're in the aftermath, and it's interesting. I remember the day after the election, I walked over to Clark Street, or the coffee shop I go to all the time, and I walked in and I said, "So, how is the world doing?" To the people who work there.
Was it Noor who was working there?
Yeah, I can't.
You can't remember? Okay.
And one of the people said, "The world is not doing well," and it was really, really funny because you could just feel the almost like the aftershock, and especially in LA, people are very. I was going to say people were shocked. I don't think people were shocked.
No, I don't think so.
I think people expected Trump to win, even though the media had been telling them the whole time Kamala was going to win.
Yeah.
And, but I do think that people were emotionally distraught, especially those who voted, for Kamala. And, and then just in the ensuing days and just there's just so many things that I find to be unique to our country, but are really fascinating because, President Biden and former President Trump ended up meeting together and having a very
2-hour conversation.
Yeah, very diplomatic, very cordial kind of experience together, which you don't do if you really believe that the newly elected president who was the president, was really a dictator and was really the equivalent of Hitler. And so you realize that in political campaigns, language is acerbic, language is extreme, language is violent. And people say things in a way that they hope will capture the imagination and hearts of people. But you kind of look back and go, oh, they didn't really mean it like that.
Right.
They meant it like, we're the better choice.
Yeah.
And that's the more dangerous choice. But you don't really sit down with someone if you really think they're about to destroy the world.
Okay. Can we take it back a few layers?
Okay. Sure.
So, election night.
Yeah.
It happens. We kind of pulled back on some politics in our own rhetoric and conversation in the
because
pod.
People are so emotionally attached to their position.
Like great friends of ours.
Yeah. And I really hate offending people I love. And it seemed like I would say something and I would get DMs from people on the left and the right angry with me for the exact same statement.
What's interesting is and maybe because the haters are, maybe hopefully I scared them off with how much I would post their DMs about the secret, because when people act brave in the DMs, but then they don't want to say it in real life, I would just start posting them. So, it's like my scarecrow, it's like my protection. But I have gotten so many DMs being like, thank you for talking about this from probably more the conservatives.
Yeah.
But I know some liberals, some on the left. And I think because 4 years ago during COVID, I was more wild about the things I was saying in a specific direction that I probably alienated some people with my language and lost some friends. So I am trying to adjust. I still want to say the things I care about and the things I believe, but it's a new era.
But that's really what I wanted to address is why do we have to lose friendships just because we hold different positions or ideologies or policies or different parties and why? What is it about us that we become identified with systems or parties and almost as a replacement of like religion? When I see a person who's so emotionally attached to being a Democrat or so emotionally attached to being a Republican, I'm going, you're more cult-like than any religion I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And, I don't think like that. I look at things in a very, maybe policy specific way. I look at things and I go, oh, I prefer the Republican view. I prefer the Democratic view. Sometimes I prefer one policy over the other, and I like one culture better than the other. And you don't have to I don't know how you could like everything about either party.
And I don't understand when people vote down the line. It doesn't make sense. It does not make sense to me because then you're not thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
You're not thinking freely. I would say this. Election day happens. Yeah. Really unique. I think going in with a lot of anxiety. I would think I was a little stressed that day. not for any reason, because I think I'd settled this the night before. I think we were having a conversation, or a few of us. I was like, okay, whatever happens, like we're not promised tomorrow, but I believe I have like hope and faith that tomorrow's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, Harris wins, I'm going to be fine. If Trump wins, we're going to be fine. It's going to be okay. There's going to be things that are better on both sides.
Yeah.
But the point of this whole thing is genuinely for us, and I know it's cheesy language, but it's like the goal is that we're reunited, that we are all still living in the same country next door to each other, you know? And oftentimes when you live in a city, you're very next door to each other. You're very close. So we just can't live in this world where we're completely segregated by our political views and values. Though I would like to talk about the election a little bit, because we have talked about politics a lot in our podcast.
It's so important to talk about. You have to find a way to be able to talk about this without creating so much contention. And I would just say, I think if you can't listen to the other side, your thinking is limited. And that's a great test marker. If you get all angry and you're offended and and defensive because someone disagrees with you politically, you're missing nuances. And even when you try to deflect on the other party or the other person, well, you voted like that because, and you diminish them. You're like, you're stupid, or you're not thinking right, or you don't understand. No, I actually think someone can vote opposite of me and be a really thoughtful, intelligent person who made the decision they believed was best for themselves and the country.
I think the most fascinating people are people who believe things that are different than you, and who are willing to like open up themselves and their minds and their political views or their religious views or their personal views, and go, let me walk you through why I care about this and how I got there. When you find the one on both sides, is that most people don't know how they got there. Right? Like and that was interesting. Like seeing a lot of TikToks or YouTube shorts and like reels and all the things, right? All the short form media. On both sides, it's just really interesting. Like half the times when kids were asked, like, okay, well, why do you support Harris? Why do you support Trump? They don't really know why.
They don't know why. That's what's to me really disturbing.
That makes me nervous.
Not what position you hold, but that you have nothing that validates why you hold that position.
Going back to what you said earlier about people on both sides kind of being upset with you in the DMs, I did get a lot of, who'd you vote for? Who'd you vote for?
Yeah.
And I'm a little bit more open about that, probably in an obnoxious, less mature way. So we're really working on growth. I got glasses just because of it. I'm just kidding. But that was a bad joke. It does kind of, it worries me, and it also, but it also like drives me to go, okay, so why do I vote the way I vote? Or why do I switch? And why do I care about different candidates more than I care about these? Right. What do you think? I do think a couple of things are going to come from this, right? And I really hope, well, one, we realize the popular vote, Trump winning the popular vote, and the electoral college.
It's pretty huge, very significant.
The House and the Senate.
Right.
It's a pretty big statement.
It is. And what I thought was really fascinating, I think I was watching these clips from The View where one of them was saying, Republicans need to really reflect on why they won. And I thought, wait a minute, you got this backwards. But
I think it's a great description of what's going on in the left, is they have it backwards.
Look, there has to be self-reflection.
It has to be.
If you cannot even reflect when you lose, you're going to keep losing.
Yes.
And
you definitely can tell who are the potential future leaders of the DNC, or maybe the leaders who've been snubbed from leadership potential. Yeah. Because they're the ones who came out and said, we really need to do like an evaluation, a self-evaluation, an audit, an internal audit of what happened. How did we lose when spending $1 billion in marketing?
I will say this, it was very predictive. When you win and you have power, and then you push things to the far extreme of your position, you're going to lose that power in a democracy. And that's what did happen to the Biden administration. But now when I'm watching Trump pick his cabinet, because if he could be more moderate and more thoughtful and a little more textured in his appointments, he's already made at least one horrific recommendation. One? Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, huh?
Absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible.
But I don't. Okay. No, make your case. I'm
just you don't put someone over the judicial system who is being indicted or being
But that's the same. He's a president who's been indicted.
Right. So you're just adding. I just think it's a bad choice. And let me put it this way.
I know, but I want to know why.
Yeah, and because of the questionable history
pulling him up
of his past, of his choices, of his character.
Okay.
And so here's my point. Let's say that he's not guilty of all those things. Okay.
Okay.
Is he still the best? Would he still be then the best candidate? The answer is still no.
But why do you think they go with a guy like that who has this track record?
I have a lot of questions in my mind as to why, but it may be almost like a litmus test. Is like, let's see if I can get anyone through that I want. Or it could be strategic of they're going to question some of my other appointments, which I think are good. So I'm going to give them an extremely bad one they can say no to.
Cut his head off.
Every once in a while you have to,
you have to feed the other side a little bit.
So there could be a lot. I cannot believe he's sitting in a room going, this is the best person. That's my question. All right. And
so you're questioning the politics. Like, why are they?
I think it's political.
It feels political.
Yeah, it feels political to me. And I wish he didn't do that. Now that he's won, if you're going to optimize the power you've been entrusted with, you have to show people that you're going to make responsible choices. And so that's just my opinion, my position. And maybe I'll be proven to be wrong. Maybe he's a wonderful person. Maybe all the accusations are completely unfounded, and maybe he has the level of integrity and character that I cannot perceive. I'm open to the fact that I may be wrong, but my first take is, what a bad choice. That's my first take.
Okay.
And I actually like some of the other choices in terms of, I expect him to choose people that will disrupt the system. So when people go, wait a minute, he doesn't have political experience, or he's not a political insider. Trump did not get elected to appoint political insiders. He actually was elected to disrupt the bureaucracy. So I'm not surprised by that. I just want people that I go, okay, that person seems to have integrity. That person it seems to have a personal moral compass that guides their life. And because there's no perfect person, and there's just, in some sense, it's almost like people are more measured by insiders or outsiders. I want outsiders. I don't want insiders.
Yeah.
And since he won, I see that the best thing that come out of it is that we really do have political outsiders who can look at the bureaucracy and try to streamline it and make it efficient and make it reflective and responsive to the desires and needs of the American people. That's my view.
Yeah. I think the left lost. They overspent. They spent $1 billion versus what was the right was like 80, was it 80 million, 120 million was their budget for marketing?
No, like I think 300 million or something like that.
But dramatically lower than the left.
Yeah.
So I think there's definitely going to be, like, all of the murmurs that I'm like watching and reading and hearing is that there's going to be a few probably deep dives into inefficiency and the payouts and the overpaying. I read something last night that was they spent over $500 million just on staffing in, I think, 2.5 months.
Yeah, and Trump spent 10 million.
Yeah, that was what. And I think they said Trump spent 80 million that same amount of time. So like 500 mil to 80 mil. You're like, how does that happen? Yeah. I don't even know scale like that. So for me, I think the left really made a bad move. But I think for the country, it might be some of the best things that has ever happened, because really the left has to look at itself and go, we have to fix some things. One, the AOCs inside of our party are not good voices for us. Yeah. Putting up Harris, that was a losing bet. And she did much better in the polls than probably what they expected. But when you have those clips going up, was it the MSNBC guy or was it the CNN guy
MSNBC guy? Yeah.
No, CNN guy, when he says, "Oh, can you show us the different the counties that Kamala has won?" And he pulls up the map, and the whole map's gray. She did not win a single county
where she improved over Biden. Yeah. I mean.
So not trying to bash her. Yeah. I think the evidence is right there.
Yeah. From my perspective, America needs a really healthy, very centrist Democratic Party. And so I hope over the next 2 years, the Democratic Party steps back, reevaluates, realizes that some very extreme ideologies have dominated the narrative of the party, that they can reclaim being a party of the people for the people. And because really what we need two parties that are slightly different political or policy views of how to accomplish the same things. The good for America. We don't need two extreme parties pushing further to the left and pushing further to the right and almost trying to see how far we can go before we break as a society. And so I hope the Democratic Party comes together and gets the best of the best minds, the people with great character and people who really believe that the Democratic Party should be for the common person, the everyday person, and try to make our lives better. And then they can bring a great argument, which will force Republicans to pull back from being extreme right, bring great arguments, bring great policies. Yeah. You just make each other better when you bring great arguments, great policies, great ideologies. And that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, it would be so much better if it felt like there was two parties trying to make the government strong and our country is, as I hate saying great because it's been like, but
co-opted.
Been co-opted, but because I'm not trying to fall into that, but like really genuinely before the goodness of the country and knowing that when America's strong and we're good and we're healthy and we're efficient, we actually help the whole world.
Yeah, the world needs the United States to be a healthy, strong, and vibrant nation. World peace is dependent on the strength of the United States of America.
Whether we like it or not,
it's just
we
true.
Affect the whole world.
Yeah.
And so I think, and not in an arrogant way, I think this is just the way culture has been happening.
It's just the way history has played itself out.
Yes. And I'm sure maybe in 1,000 years or 500 years or 200 years, it'll be different. I think
it'll be Rome again. No.
Right. Or it'll be Hong Kong or it'll be, it could just
it might be China one day.
Yeah. Who knows? Right. Like I think there's gonna be, it's always going to turn over. Like the history of the world is so dynamic, but I do think that you make a great point. Like we live in a nuanced country. So voting between two hard-lined parties doesn't make sense for us. They need to come and find a middle ground and actually address the nuances. Like I do not like that we use specific trigger words. I hate the ad bashing. I'm so for freedom of speech. I do think there needs to be class and like a healthy political etiquette. You should not be allowed to, you should be more focused on your policies and presenting yourself in a positive light than presenting your opponent in a negative one.
Absolutely.
And I do think there should be some regulations there. And I do think there needs to be so much more transparency in how they run their campaigns and the money they take. And I think lobbying needs a complete reformation. They need to reform the way that lobbying happens. There should not be this massive influence on either side. And I know that there's massive financial influence on both sides, but it just feels like some things need to change. I really, really think that Trump going on Rogan made a massive difference.
Which is a great point because we've seen a cultural shift from the influence of celebrities to the influence of podcasters.
Yeah.
Where, in the past, if you had Beyonce and you had Oprah and you had, George Clooney and you had all the top celebrities in industry.
Everyone who's famous.
supporting you, you just could not lose.
No.
Because I think 20 years ago, as a country, when you saw Oprah and Clooney and Beyonce, whoever it was, or Taylor Swift, you would just vote for whoever they were supporting.
Yeah.
And now it's not only that they don't carry influence, is that they carry negative influence. That when they're endorsing someone, I think people are more likely not to vote for that candidate. So we've seen a shift, not just from the power of celebrities pulling in votes to now the power of celebrities actually costing you votes.
That's interesting. And I think we live in a new era, and I hope this stays, because I think a prerequisite for becoming a presidential candidate, you should have to do unedited interviews that last hours.
I think it's already changed.
If you can't, because I actually don't listen to Joe Rogan, to be honest. I listen to his clips. Like I follow everyone.
I've never heard an episode of Joe Rogan.
Oh, I've listened to maybe 5 episodes.
Yeah. But the clips are extraordinary.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give them credit for that. Yeah. They're amazing.
I've listened to 2 Elon Musk episodes. I've listened to 1 Kanye episode that he did like 5 or 6 years ago. I've listened to the Zach Bryan, which is a touchy subject as well that we're not going to talk about on this podcast. Listen to his episode. So listening to the Elon Musk episode and the President Trump episode was really unique. And I was hoping Harris would go on because maybe there's something there that you just don't see in the campaign or in her interviews. And you go, maybe 3 hours of just, let's talk, let's just be humans, would work for her, you know? And I think her turning that down was a huge misstep.
Yeah.
I think it was a huge win for Trump. It could have been very dangerous because if he could have blown it.
And as many things as he says spontaneously that he should not say, 3 hours on Joe Rogan could have ended his entire campaign.
Campaign. Absolutely. So I think there has to be these checkpoints, but I really hope that Lex Friedman, you know, Huberman, Rogan, these guys who had them on, like, understand the power of the influence they have. I think they do to some degree. I think it's good that the media, they're the new media, right? And so I hope they don't get bought. I hope they don't sell. I hope they keep their audiences, they curate them, they feed the community, and they continue to create this space so that every election you have to go and do Rogan, and Rogan just gets to know you. Yeah.
Not only is that a significant shift, a shift from celebrities or from, let's say, from Hollywood to podcasts, right?
Yeah. Either way, we wanted to go about this conversation in a unique way because I think friends on both sides have made us very aware that just being overtly opinionated not so much hurts them or hurts our community or hurts the pod, but that I think we realized that we're in an era and maybe in a moment in time where people are a little more fragile than they've been in the past. And so I think we just want to be more cognizant of it. So, I mean, for me, if Harris had won, I would have obviously stayed in the US. I would have, I might bash her from time to time. But I know that we've always been harder on him than her.
Yeah.
Even though behind the scenes, I'm probably harder on her. And so I think we've been given a gift. We want to address this. We want to talk about it. We're going to keep talking about it, but we mostly just want to handle this with care. I think the most important thing is to have healthy conversations with people across the table from you. People in your life, in your family. It's okay if people in your family believe in something different.
Yeah, this advice that people are getting to not invite your families to Thanksgiving and Christmas if they voted for Trump is the worst advice I've ever heard. Do not allow politics to divide your families. Oh, the other thing that really struck me is we almost saw the end of legacy media, that, CNN and MSNBC and like what we consider, the classic networks have diminished so much in their influence that they almost disappeared. And here's my prediction.
What?
If Harris had won, legacy media would have ended because they just don't speak negatively about the Democratic Party.
Right.
Now that Trump has won, legacy media has a chance because they now for the next 4 years have a really strong target. So if you want to hear the contrast to Trump, you'll go to CNN and MSNBC and maybe even the Fox, because Fox did not seem to be a Trump fan in the past few years.
No, I don't think they love him. I think he kind of commandeered their party.
Yeah.
I think legacy media is dead. It's just,
I think they're back. They have a little bit of oxygen.
You look at the numbers. One Rogan video does more than CNN's numbers in a week. Like,
that's true.
He is better paid than every one of their. You put all of their, I think, primary communicators on CNN and Fox, and he's higher paid than each individual network's entire cast.
Yeah.
So, and that's him generating his own commercials and his own funding and his own space, merch, XYZ. So I'm looking at it and I'm going, if one man's more powerful, there's about 50 other pods that are pretty powerful as well. I think this new media is, we trust these guys because they tell us the truth with everyone else, or they're asking truthful questions. So why would I not trust them when they're bringing up the presidential candidate?
Yeah. I mean, the reality is we are the new media.
We are the new media. It's exciting.
And this is the network you can trust.
Can I ask you one last question before we end this brief episode that we're doing?
Absolutely.
Who would you rather interview, Trump or Harris?
If it was unfiltered?
You say we get an hour and a half with either candidate.
Right now, I would actually rather interview Kamala Harris.
Really?
I would.
Amazing.
Because I think that we have enough interviews where we actually do know who Trump is. We actually do know what he's thinking. We actually do know what motivated him and where he's at. I don't think we know that with Kamala. I don't think there's been an interview yet that has genuinely gotten into her inner world, has helped us understand what her perspective was about all this.
See,
I would love to know.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I
just think
I have lots of thoughts on that. So
that story has actually not been revealed.
Because I think they couldn't figure out which story they wanted to stick with. And so I think the party was trying to fabricate a story. Right? I think it's always illustrious. There's always some kind of theatrics to it. On every candidate, right?
That was my caveat. If you were saying to me, who would I rather interview? I would say, if both of them would tell me the absolute truth, I would rather interview Kamala.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she feels freedom or safety or whatever it may be, confidence to actually tell her true story.
That's really interesting. And there's so much we could break down there on, do you think she's allowed to tell her side of the story?
What it's been like to be vice president for 3.5 years, what it's like to be really hidden for that entire time. And did she feel valued? Did she feel that they positioned her well? What was really going through her mind when she was made the border czar and then backed off? Did she feel like she was being given a challenge that was impossible to solve, and that would have put her in a complete deficit? Like, I would like to know those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be so interesting. I don't know if I could choose. I'd say him just because I'm always just curious because he just seems like such a tornado.
He's so much more entertaining.
And I'm fascinated by his family.
Yeah.
And that for me is really like, I think the older I get and like not having a family, but really hoping like one day that happens, I'm always just so curious about people who seem to raise families and kids that stay close.
Yeah.
And not judging Kamala's side, but like I just don't really have any interest in her husband or the kids. Like there isn't this like story that I'm a part of. And I think they're a great example of like a family that like doesn't actually connect with I think it connects with like the 1% of America, ironically. And I do think we're in an era where we just realized the coastal Democrats are the 1%. They're the 1%. They spent the $1 billion. Right.
Yeah.
So that is like the irony to me. I think we have to like self-evaluate. We have to audit this. Like the people who made us angry about the 1%ers. I wasn't angry about them. I just wanted to become them.
Yeah.
We're actually the 1%ers.
Yeah. In my lifetime, I grew up, remember saying out loud, how could anyone ever be a Republican? I'm for the people.
Right.
And because I saw Republicans as the cultural elitists. And in my lifetime, it's the Democrats who are the cultural elitists.
Yeah.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen, a complete cultural reversal within two parties.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Anyway, well, I'm excited to keep talking about this. I hope it's okay that we did talk about this.
I get so many people go, you're a pastor, you shouldn't be talking about this. And I go, no, one of the things I do is pastor.
Yeah.
I am so much more than that. And I just hope our listeners actually value some political reflection because it's a part of the culture. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of our nation's dynamic and our fabric. To not talk about this, to me, is to become irrelevant to the conversation. So I think it's important that we do at least talk about this some.
One thing I was really shocked by, and we can always cut this, but last Wednesday, so day after the election, you were doing Lewis House's podcast.
Yeah.
And I was jumping on my therapy call and I like try to keep it, especially on big weeks. I like really try to like keep that time. So sometimes it's just me walking down the street in New York, like last night before our event at Mosaic in New York. And sometimes it's in the car outside of Beverly Hills High School while you're in with Lewis House and I jump in later. And shout out Lewis. He is the Greatness podcast, right? The Summit of Greatness.
Yeah.
Greatness, one of the best. But I'm sitting outside Beverly Hills High School, where Mosaic used to have a campus in that high school, and it's it's definitely a specific demographic. It's a public school in Beverly Hills. I was absolutely floored. So I'm on therapy on my phone and I'm sitting in the car and I'm just watching kid after kid after kid after kid. I'm not kidding. I probably watched a few hundred kids wearing MAGA hats, wearing Trump 24 hats, wearing Make America Great Again in so many different colors, looking at like Teslas getting picked up with like flags, like huge.
And this is the Jewish and Persian community, dominantly.
Yeah, it's predominantly like a Persian Jewish like school.
Yeah,
because it's like that's the neighborhood. But in a public school in LA, you just never would imagine that or see it. And I was shocked. The only other time I'd seen that was when I went to Scottsdale during COVID to get away for 2 days, and I was shocked. Because I'm like watching the news going, this is a completely different world. I'm driving outside and people are like, young people are like waving Trump flags. I'm like, this feels weird and eerie and like very, a little bit dystopian, scary.
Well, I'm not going to be nervous by a Trump 2024 hat, but I will get nervous.
Yeah.
If I see a Trump 2028 hat.
Yeah, it makes me nervous. So yeah, that makes me real nervous. Yeah. I hope I'm not. I always am shocked. I'm always just shocked when people like rep teams in basketball really hard.
Yeah.
I'd die for the Lakers or I'll die for the Yankees.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love the Dodgers, but like, brother, I'm staying alive. So when people are just like repping Trump or Harris so hard, I just don't understand it in general. So I'm like, okay, I was just really, really, really shocked that like all of these kids, male, female, young, cool, white, Persian, all of them, just repping that political party. So it was really surprising for me. And I knew that moment, I was like, oh, this is what's going on. People who live in LA have seen the crime, the violence, the fact that we got in a hit and run 2 weeks ago that we haven't talked about. Yeah. And I called the police 4 times. They never picked up. Yeah. And they finally picked up 15 minutes later. I said, dude, I've been calling you her response was, I was like, I've been calling you for 15 minutes. She goes, well, this is the first time I'm speaking with you, sir. And I was like, hey, I want this on record. You guys do not pick up. This is insane. And a cop watched it happen and just drove away. So the
decay in our cities.
That's not an indicator of the bad policemen. Yeah, I think there's good and bad of everyone. I think it's the decaying of the system. They're not having the funds, the personnel, the training. And I just know the police are tired of intervening in crimes. They know that person will be released 30 minutes later. Or suing them for whatever they did. Yeah. It becomes a scary idea.
And it is part of what people are really tired of and frustrated by. And
I think in the major cities.
In every major city, it's getting worse and worse. So I'm just, I would just encourage people, I would not be in panic if Kamala Harris won. No. I'm not in panic that Donald Trump won. No. And we need to keep things in perspective, and we need to be for whoever got elected, that they would do a great job and they would go extremely well, because their failure has a direct impact on us. Their success has a great impact on us. So I am cheering Donald Trump on. Yes. I want him to do a great job. I want him to appoint a great cabinet. I want our government to run better than it's ever run. And, the people are like, I want Trump to fail. I want it to go really bad.
But why? Do you want us to fail?
Yeah, it's not Trump who fails. It's us. Yes. It wasn't Biden who failed. It's the American people who experience the weight of that failure. So, it's insane for us to not want whatever party wins an election to thrive and succeed. We need to want them to succeed and to make our future better than our past has been.
I think this is such an amazing conversation. It's much needed. And I think that because you have been a pastor, we need to talk about these things. I think we have to stop limiting each other and labeling each other by our occupation, religion, race, sexual identity. I think we need to get back to being human and having thoughts, perspectives, and giving the reason why. So thank you guys for listening to this podcast. We really appreciate it. Dad, thanks for jumping on here together. We're like about to check out of this hotel and get out of here. So I'm sure I was just literally been waiting for the knock the entire time we've been shooting.
All right. Hey, thank you, Soho Grand, for letting us keep the suite just a few minutes longer than expected. All right. Hey guys, we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you guys soon. Check us out, Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube. Hit subscribe, leave a rate and review and a comment on YouTube, and we will see you guys next week.
All right. Hey, love you, bud.
Love you.